Welcome, bienvenidos. I'm Stephen Cornejo Garcia, the chair of the board of directors of Mujeres Latinas en Acción. And this year, I have the pleasure of serving as co-chair, along with Liz Bautista, of our signature fundraising event, Voces, Unidas 2022, Road to Gold. If you saw the slideshow that opened the virtual program, you saw a full list of sponsors and donors who made this gathering happen. Our platinum sponsors, Sidley Austin LLP, Allstate Insurance Company. Our gold sponsors, the Northern Trust Company, Davis, Polk and Wardwell LLP, Chase Bank, Harrington Site Services Company. Our silver sponsors, KPMG, ABC 7 Chicago, Delgado Rampf Brin LLC, ComEd, St. Anthony's Hospital, Arndt Fox Schiff LLP, McDonald's Hispanic Owner Operators Association of Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana. Our bronze sponsors, Huntington Bank, CBOE Global Market, PepsiCo, UI Health or UIC, Kirkland and Ellis LLP. And of course, we have many important captains who committed $1,000 and we'll place those names in the chat momentarily. It's very fitting that we come together to celebrate Mujeres Latinas en Acción during Women's History Month and with such proximity to International Women's Day just yesterday. I'm sure you join me in paying homage to the many sheroes in our lives without whom we wouldn't be here today. I also want to acknowledge the challenging times we are facing as a global community and how women and children in particular are suffering due to the invasion of the Ukraine and other geopolitical issues occurring all over the world. We stand in solidarity with the Ukrainian people and people across the globe who are facing these atrocities and fighting valiantly for survival. Voces Unidas, as an event and fundraiser, has been a touchstone and time marker as we've moved throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2022, we had to cancel the event only days before gathering. In 2021, the event was 100% virtual. And this year, in 2022, it is a hybrid fundraiser with a virtual and in-person gathering. And we're looking ahead. We're looking ahead with optimism and fully aware that the challenges and changes that Mujeres and our community might face will require strength and unity, two characteristics that Mujeres and its supporters have shown time and time again, and especially since that week in March 2020, when everything changed. We named this event Voces Unidas Road to Gold because in 2023, Mujeres will be 50. That's 5 decades of service to Chicagoland's immigrant families, 5 decades of marching in the streets for the rights and dignity of survivors, 5 decades hustling to pay bills and getting creative to find spaces to hold programs. And it's also 5 decades of growth, changes, and success. Mujeres, which started with a handful of women volunteers, is now an organization with over 65 full-time employees, an established headquarters in Pilsen, and satellite offices in the Brighton Park neighborhood and in the township of North Riverside, serving the western suburbs of Cook County. It might be the big 5-0, but 50 is still young. Mujeres has ambitious plans. The road to gold is really just the start of the journey, a journey that you are a part of. You will help Mujeres set its place as a pillar of the Chicago community for the next 5 decades. And before I introduce you to the leader of the organization, the Latina who will be leading the way, I want to mention 2 things. For the first time, we have an online silent auction. You can find the link to these amazing prizes in the chat. Prizes include an Apple Watch, tickets to events like a Blackhawks game, the Pet Shop Boys and New Order concert. Every cent raised will go to Mujeres. And if gadgets and fun events aren't your thing, you can also simply donate. We're kicking off our paddle raise right now, and the link is in the chat. This is the first time we're doing a paddle raise since 2019. So show your love, and I hope to see and thank many of you in person at tomorrow's cocktail party. Now it is indeed my pleasure to introduce you to the President and CEO of Mujeres Latinas en Acción, Linda Tortolero. Linda?
Thank you. Everyone, welcome, bienvenidos. This virtual hour was specifically designed to be intimate. If you're new to Mujeres as a donor, if you are a current or former board member or YPAC member, or if you were on the ground for this life-changing organization in the 70s and the 80s, this event was designed with you in mind. We want you to know where we are going, and the celebration we are kicking off today. First, these 49 years would be meaningless if not for the staff and the volunteers who prioritize our community. As their needs have changed, so has Mujeres. These past 2 years have led to adaptations and reinventions on a level I never could have imagined. Now, I'd like to share some highlights from our most recent 2021 annual report. Mujeres' data captured the toll of gender-based violence and the pandemic's impact on entire families across Chicagoland. Our domestic violence program served 757 adults in individual counseling, close to 400 of whom were Latinx immigrants with no health insurance. Mujeres' domestic violence program served 144 children in individual counseling. This was a 50% increase from what we projected in previous years. Mujeres' sexual assault program provided 348 individual adult counseling sessions and 50 individual child therapy sessions, and 1,388 individuals received community education to prevent and address sexual violence. 92 Latina leaders were trained in advocacy with the support of our Community Engagement and Mobilization Program. In partnership with the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, Mujeres enrolled 490 people in U.S. citizenship, naturalization, exam prep through the New Americans Initiative. These are just fractions of our impact. I am proud that Mujeres found ways to serve our community through the confusion, the misinformation, and fear. We connected community members with over $1 million in emergency cash assistance. We launched a campaign for equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines and testing, all while still fighting for the rights and dignity of immigrants, especially survivors of violence and their families. Now at the cusp of reflection of 5 decades of success and challenges, Mujeres is making a bold move. Mujeres is asking, how can we better take care of the people who are doing the difficult work day after day? How do we take care of the counselors, the therapists, the entrepreneur trainers, the advocates who show up every day with passion and commitment to service? As our founder, Maria Mangual, once said, our fighting days are not behind us, but once again ahead of us. This will require cross-generational efforts. We need to ensure that we remain vigilant to protect these rights for our daughters and granddaughters. It is in that spirit that Mujeres launched a 3-year initiative to address Latina pay inequity. In Illinois, according to the National Women's Law Center, Latinas only make 49 cents to every dollar a white man makes. Mujeres will do the difficult work to assure that our policies and our advocacy align to address the systemic barriers that Latina workers face. We will be intentional with compensation and foster an environment to lift our workers and their families, and to break cycles of income ceilings, and in the long term, support Latina generational wealth. And as we think of the future, we look to you to assure that Mujeres' her story is solidified. The story of Mujeres is uniquely a woman's story, uniquely a Chicago story, and uniquely a Latina story. And together with you, it is a story we will tell. And with that, I'd like to introduce our other co-chair for Voces Unidas, board secretary, and the moderator for this panel, Liz Bautista with Great American Insurance Group. Liz?
Thank you, Linda. Hello, everyone. I am Liz Bautista, and I am excited and honored to introduce our panelists. They are both established as well as up-and-coming Latina media professionals. First, we have Diana Palomar of ABC 7 Chicago. Diana joined ABC 7 Chicago in 2001, bringing nearly 10 years of experience in community affairs and corporate relations with a local cable company. She guides the station's public engagement efforts, including, but not limited to, managing on-air campaigns and media partnerships, executing major community projects and off-site station activations, engaging and coordinating on-air talent, public appearances, and providing another public face for the station across the communities it serves. Diana serves as a director on several nonprofit boards, including serving as the chair of the board of directors to Mujeres Latinas en Acción in the 2000s. Thank you for your service, Diana. She has provided community organizations assistance with media, marketing, communications efforts, and resource development. Next is Aileen Ocana of Univision Radio Chicago. Aileen Ocana was born in the United States, but lived her childhood and adolescence in Michoacan, Mexico. She graduated with a Bachelor in Communications in 2000. In 2001, she began working with Univision Radio Chicago as an on-air personality. For the last 8 years, she has produced and hosted the weekend community show, Nuestra Comunidad, which airs on all 4 Univision radio stations. And she is the host of our Community First platform, Univision Contigo Chicago. Aside from those important tasks, she oversees community affairs at Univision Radio Chicago, which gives her the opportunity to communicate with nonprofit organizations and institutions that together will work for the benefit of the community. Welcome, Aileen.
Thank you.
And our final panelist is Christine Flores of WGN. Christine Flores has a BA in journalism from the University of Nevada, Reno, and joined the WGN News Now team in April of 2021 as a digital content host. Prior to WGN TV, Flores spent 5 years as a bilingual reporter at CBS 58 Telemundo in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where she covered protests, cultural stories, as well as long-term investigative pieces. Earlier in her career, she worked for stations in Huntsville and Reno as a multimedia journalist and as an editor. Welcome, Christine. All of you are busy ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
So-
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes.
Thank you for having us here.
Very, very honored. Thank you.
Well, we're going to get right into questions. And the first question is for Aileen. Aileen, we understand representation in the media is important. What are some positive stories about Latinas and their families you've reported on recently?
For me, it's very important. Thank you, first of all, for having me here. It's important working as a radio host for Univision Radio Chicago to report that kind of stories, positive stories about not just Latinas, but in general, but about my immigrant community. And it's a pleasure when I hear stories that is gonna inspire me and then my community, because I feel that commitment to share stories that are going to be a great impact in my community. For example, when I hear of women, it's working as a CEO or important companies for unimaginable maybe fields that we thought, because the idea of gender situation, those fields are just for men. Nowadays, we can work as a woman wherever we want. And when I hear women participating in science, technology, or engineering, for me, those are remarkable stories that I need to share, and I think it's going to inspire another women out there. Also, stories about first generations students going to university. I feel proud at the instant that I know that kind of stories, and I believe I'm going to inspire other families, other students out there, because it's a milestone to reach higher level of education, especially in our communities, immigrant communities and Latino. And during the pandemic, I had the opportunity to discover 2 stories that really inspire me, because in the middle of this emergency, I discovered that women are doing great things out there. It doesn't matter the situation that we are living. They were brave, they were intrepid, fearless. I went to this place in Logan Square. The name is a coffee shop, MLEA. And the story behind, she's an immigrant, she's Latina, and she was so fearless to open in the middle of this situation, her business. Nothing stopped her, and she opened this beautiful place, and I went to support local business and especially owned by a Latina. Another great story that I discovered, and at that moment last year, I shared those stories in my shows with different institutions and organizations like Mujeres Latinas and Acción, helping women to open businesses. This coffee shop is also in Pilsen. And the story, it's remarkable because she is an immigrant. She was a DACA recipient. She was dealing with health issues, and she opened her coffee shop. It was her dream. So I really admire that kind of stories that I think are gonna make the difference in our communities. And it's important for me and the radio to share those stories, positive stories.
Thank you. Those are inspirational stories. Educación. Oh, they're great.
They
And
are.
entrepreneurial, spirit. That's Latinos. That's who we are. Thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure.
The next question, it's a two-part question, and it's for Diana. First question is, have you seen changes in the way that English mainstream media covers Latinas? And then how can the media understand what the community needs are?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking me to be a part of this, what I think is a really important conversation, and to share this platform with these two amazing women doing some really great work for their stations. And of course, I love Mujeres, a very special part in place in my heart. So thank you for that. I think to answer the first question, wait, repeat the question for me real quick. The first one.
Oh, of course.
I got into the second one already.
Yes. Have you seen changes in the way that English mainstream media covers Latinas?
So as an English language station, we have a different audience, obviously, than the Spanish language media outlets. So we have to look at our viewership as in a diverse spectrum. So we have African American and Latino and Asian, API, LGBTQ, white ethnic. So and then age, and then veterans, and we have that whole spectrum of viewership. So we have to really try to make sure that the stories that we do can easily resonate with anyone who's a human, right? So that it doesn't really matter what community you're from. But when it comes to more community-focused stories, we do tend to look at what the population is of the market. So for instance, in Chicago, we kind of base the level of storytelling on the amount of the community that's represented. And we know that we share our Latino community with Univision a lot, which is why we're partners on quite a few things, how proudly. And but we do have to be mindful of the other communities that are watching us. So very often, I feel like I have two roles and two goals. One as a professional doing this job, making sure that the community feels like their stories are being told, or there's representation of their communities in our news and our storytelling. But also personally, I'm born and raised here, Mexican and Latina, and I'm very proud of that. So I temper that with trying to make sure that my community is well represented. And then I think as part of an obligation to our communities, especially if you're in the media, you don't know what's going on out there if you're not part of the community. So that's why serving with nonprofit organizations is so critical to being able to be a part of that community. You don't have to live in a community to be a part of it. I know that for a fact, because I've been associated with Mujeres for 25 years, I think. And it was so proud when I was finally asked to be a part of the board, because you have to be asked. You can't just walk on in, because they expect a lot from us as board members. You really have to make a contribution. And but that's how you hear stories, and that's how you connect with people. And it's relationships that are so critical to maintain a reputation, and also to have people comfortable enough to share information with you that I can in turn send into our newsroom, and with a note saying, we really need to focus on this, or let's really think about this. So I always encourage constant communication. People know how to find me. And I feel like I have that role really, and I'm doing it well. So it's not just with Mujeres, but it's other organizations. But again, I have to make sure that I represent a lot of our viewership, and not just my community, but I'm telling you, I really work hard to make sure that I do the best on behalf of our community. So I can tell you that.
And I will agree, Diana. I will say you are a great champion. You've been a great champion for Mujeres Latinas en Acción, as well as for the community. So thank you. Thank you so much. The next question is also a two-part question, and it's for Christine. Christine, do you think that there is a different way in which younger audiences absorb information? And what are the challenges in telling Latina stories today?
Absolutely. Más que nada, hola, buenas tardes. Thank you so much for having me on here and for the invitation. But yeah, I think if we look around, it's very obvious, right? We always have our phones right next to us all the time, always looking at all those notifications that come through. And how do we stay on top of things? How do we see things? So starting off with that first part of that question, the younger generation, yes, definitely. That's kind of my job here, right? Is enabling all of the stories that we do to cater to that kind of a market. Where are they? All over social media, from YouTube videos to now YouTube Shorts to now Instagram and all the different platforms, but everything that ties back to this little thing that's in the palm of our hands. And it's just getting their attention in a shorter span. So it's telling the stories that they will connect to, but overall kind of engaging them within their community, because we found that it's those small little stories, just kind of how Aileen had mentioned and Diana had mentioned, that it's the stories that are within the community that are going to make the biggest impact in them, because they feel related to it. Whether it's a TikTok video letting them know, like, where's the new spot in town and what's the story behind the new owner, or what's gonna bring you a little bit of, enlightenment or a break from reality that is new and up and coming, but at the same time, it's going to give you a very Instagrammable post that people can follow along. But that is definitely for the first part. The second part is then getting their confidence, because like some of the other panelists have mentioned, Diana and Aileen, sure, you can go out and find these stories, but the biggest challenge that we found here too is getting that trust, because it's kind of a two-parter there too, because sometimes they'll say, well, I don't think anyone's going to care about the situation I'm going through. Sure, we're all stuck at home. We're all, getting used to this new norm, but why is my story different, and why should I tell you my story? So that's kind of been the challenge of being able to get them to trust us, right? And being able to share their story. But the other part of that is, well, there's all these naysayers. Oh yeah, they have this story to tell. How do we help them overcome that little voice in the back of their head that's going to tell them, oh yeah, well, no one's going to care about that one? Yes, in fact, there is. There's always an audience for things like that. And it's always trying to find that personable connection between the person that you're trying to interview, but yet sharing their story in a way that other people will be able to relate to it as well.
Thank you, Christina. I am so glad that you are leading the charge for our younger generation, because I want to share everything with you right now. I'm like ready to tell my story, and who better to trust than you? So thank you for all you do. So this next question is for the panel. So whoever wants to take it, just go right ahead. It is, why is it important for the stories of immigrants and families to be shared? And you can see that we have a theme here. So why is it important for the stories of immigrants and families to be shared? Who'd like to go?
Oh, I guess I'll go. I think it's important to put faces on these stories, but really be mindful that these are human beings that we're talking about. And I think we've been challenged over many years, just as a country, to really put immigrant stories in a positive light, because for so many years, and I'll just speak about Mexican immigrants or those coming from the southern borders, in a really poor light, and that's not right. That's not fair. I feel like we've been doing a better job, at least, especially in mainstream media, which, our audience is not just necessarily Spanish speaking, to really make sure that, and understand that immigrants are not just Spanish speakers. Immigrants are from around the world, and we get immigrants from every country into this country. So I think making sure that you put other faces on those stories. I mean, I remember a conversation we had one time with a member of the Asian community, and they said, we're part of the immigrant population as well. So we, it should not, and by the way, that was a twofold kind of comment. It was, your story should really reflect all the immigrants, and it shouldn't be bad about, those stories should not be negatively skewed. So I think it's really important. And I think we do a better job of that, but we always have to be mindful. These are human beings that are just trying to make a better life for their families.
Going off of what Diana was saying too, I think the other part of that is reminding people where they came from, because one of the things I've come across is a lot of people who say, yes, I'm proud of being Latino, I'm proud of my immigrant background, and sometimes they have different immigrant backgrounds. They may be Polish, they may be coming from a different Latin American country, but they say, oh, but I don't speak that language and I'm not fluent. And so them hearing a lot of these stories, they've said has helped them relate to their background and their culture and their heritage, and knowing like, yes, my ancestors come from there. I'd love to learn more about that. Or, what does that certain item mean? Things like that. I think that's the other part too of the importance of telling these stories and continuing to tell them.
Yeah, and to feel represented, especially for me working in Spanish media, our community, immigrant communities, maybe they have additional needs. They have sometimes the barrier of the language, the barrier of the legal status in this country. So I believe that it's part of my responsibility, our responsibility at Univision, local Chicago, to inform and to guide my community and to share with them stories that we feel related and represented. Yes.
Yeah, all great answers. It's so true. There's so many different levels of, whether we know the language, whether we got to visit our countries. But, I think the greatest gift my mom ever gave me was taking us to Mexico every year and visit with our grandparents and getting to know and understand the culture and where we came from. So thank you so much for those answers. I have another question. And it's for the panel. You three are familiar with Mujeres in different ways. What is the one thing about Mujeres' work or Mujeres' history that you personally think is important for people to know?
I can answer. For me, Mujeres Latinas en Acción, when I think about Mujeres, the institution is to think about hope. For me, working in media, Spanish media, I know they work so close with my community, with the people out there. It's like a source of information. I'm always looking for programs, services, resources that Mujeres Latinas en Acción has to offer with the community. At the beginning, maybe they were created as an institution to work and service people suffering domestic violence, but nowadays they offer a wide spectrum of different services. I'm super happy to have Mujeres Latinas en Acción as an ally for me and for Univision Radio, because I'm always looking for an interview. Okay, let's get the information out there. Let's promote this program. There is two programs that I really like, and it's Empresarias del Futuro. Again, looking for those skills that we have as Latinas. Nos gusta el negocio, so Empresarias del Futuro offers that kind of information. It's a training program with the knowledge, the guidance, resources out there for minorities like us, women, Latinas. So one day, women, they need to become economically independent, and nowadays we see it. We need to share that responsibility in our homes. to be the breadwinners also. So I think that's a fantastic program that I'm always looking to share, because they have different workshops and courses during the year with Mujeres Latinas en Acción, and they are helping a lot of our entrepreneurs, women here in Chicago locally. So I love when they have the little mercaditos, bazares, with these women already selling their products or their services. So I'm always supporting that kind of programs with Mujeres Latinas en Acción. Another great program that I really like, I'm always looking for information, it's Latina Leadership, because they gave women the tools to become leaders in their communities, first of all in their families, then out there in the neighborhoods. It could be with the networking, with a group of friends, with their families. And they are going to learn about community activism, and we need a lot of that kind of leaders in our community, and especially Latinas. So for me, Mujeres Latinas en Acción, it's an ally to work this whole time, and it's hope. Yes.
Yeah, hope is, go ahead, Diana.
No, you.
No, yes, hope for sure, I think is the best word to describe a lot of the programs that Mujeres does and continues to do. My biggest thing is, like, during the pandemic, everything shut down, right? We were all trying to figure things out. And even then, there were so many sectors of Mujeres that was still open and available for people to find the resources, know where to go, what do they need to have to just kind of keep things going along, right? Siguiendo adelante, because that I feel is always the biggest motto. And to know that there's an organization right here available for us, that no matter what you need, they can put you in contact with the right resources. And that, I think, is an overall amazing thing that sets Mujeres apart, especially from anything else that other people may see or be available to them in the area.
And I think that term is so important. I'm going to turn back some chapters here in terms of history, because I've been with Mujeres for so long, and a member of the community that I have been. I think for two things. One, Mujeres was, I was exposed to Mujeres at a time when my mother was going through some issues with my father. And I knew firsthand the fear of, how to get out of the situation. Luckily, it wasn't serious, but, physical, but, mental abuse it can be just as devastating. And I remember before my mother passed, I was able to bring her to one event where we had Henry Cisneros come, the former HUD secretary. So this is a long time ago. But I remember she was just, seeing Latina women engaged in conversation and a part of something that looked so important to her, that I knew was important, but she hadn't seen that before. And so I remember that thought just stayed with my mind. And then the more I got involved with Mujeres, just to see how it navigated the community, empowering our women. And then all these programs that exist now weren't really, they were very nascent at that time. They didn't have names, I don't think. But I have a group of women who have been around Mujeres for a very long time. And I had the pleasure and the honor of meeting Maria Mangual, one of the founders, and other women. So, they carry the pride of our community, and also the determination to help our community, on their sleeves. And obviously Mujeres is the reason for that and the object of that. And to see the leadership continue those dreams and hopes forward, but also not just looking at the past, but looking at the lessons of the past and creating new futures for people, because we have to change. We have to be dynamic. You can't do business today like you did it 20 years ago. And so I love how Mujeres is changing and adapting with the times, and seeing what are your needs and how can we use them, with social media. I mean, all those things we didn't think about, 20 years ago. And so it's so heartwarming to see how we are going where the women are. And by the way, taking care of their families, because if you don't have a family that feels protected and engaged, that's just going to have ripple effects on the negative side for other members of the family. So I'm just so proud of how Mujeres has evolved. I believe it's going to be 50 years next year, but yeah, Mujeres is just, it's just fabulous.
Thank you, Diana. Well, those are are great answers, and I'm so moved right now. I'm just like, I'm a little choked up. It's such an honor to be able to spend this time with you, ladies. And we have one more question. So Mujeres has grown its support across the country, right? In fact, we've begun Mujeres planning some national work, which I think is amazing. So please, everyone out there, please make sure you sign up for our newsletter. It's in the link. So please sign up and find out all these amazing resources that Mujeres Latinas en Acción provides, because it's all those things that you've just heard: hope, pride, leadership. If these women are examples of all of those things, and please know more about what the work that Mujeres is doing and the work that's to come, right? So sign up for the newsletter, and then here's the final question. What makes Chicago special?
It has so much to offer. Sure, we're cooped up in the winter, but I mean, like Saturday, perfect example. Oh my gosh, talk about a teaser. And then of course it reminded us, hey, you remember where you live. And then it was cold again. I was sweeping snow off my car, but it has so much to offer. And not just that, it's the people that make it what it is, from every single little neighborhood, from every little nook in the wall that you can find. There's something different, there's something unique. And that is what sets it apart. And it's such a nice place to be.
I love Chicago because it's so diverse. That's what I'm looking to live in, a great city. And Chicago has everything: places, cultures, food, neighborhoods with their own characteristics, and they keep their own culture, their own traditions. And that's what I like about Chicago. It doesn't matter about the terrible winter that we are suffering. But when spring and summer is coming, I'm the most happy person, and my favorite place in Chicago has to be the Lakeshore Drive. So, yeah.
I've been lucky to have visited a lot of places in my life. And while I enjoy the travel, I have to say that there is no other city like Chicago. And I know we have our issues. Clearly, we see them every single day. But it's just, I can look past that because I think, you know, if you're part of a community, you know, you can weather any of that storm. Like if you have a family, you can weather all the things that are going on around you. You know, I think there's diversity. Again, acknowledging the issues that we have, there's still a great deal of diversity. You can visit different neighborhoods. And honestly, and I'm not just saying this, I think organizations like Mujeres Latinas en Acción help to drive, you know, so many different engines in our city. Because again, they're looking for the health of a family, you know, women who leave their families, and taking care of that part can really have a wider effect, a more positive effect on a community, and then of course on society, you know, and all these nonprofits having a part to play in the success of a city. But Chicago, I think, is one of the most beautiful cities that there are in the world. And you know, you go to New York, and no offense to New York, but they have garbage on the street. At least we have the decency to have an alley, or you know, containers that are kind of off-site a little bit. And I just think, you know, we're just amazing. And I know, you know, there's no other place like Chicago in the world, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's even more amazing because it has 3 campeonas, you know, leaders in this community. And I just want to say again, thank you. It's been such an honor to be able to spend this time with you. And thank you for sharing all of your stories. We really appreciate you providing us this time. It's so generous of you to give us this time with you. And we hope that we'll see you tomorrow, because tomorrow at the live event, the in-person event for the first time since 2019, and it's actually my first one because I joined in 2019 and I didn't get to go. So there will be the Mercadito there. So the Empresarias program, we will have the Mercadito there. So you'll get to see all the amazing things that they do. And we're really excited about it. So again, ladies, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed it. And for those of you, if you enjoyed it too, please donate to Mujeres today. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's always things that Mujeres can do. So please, please, please donate today. And now, to close us out, Linda has a special announcement.
Thank you, Liz, and gracias to all the amazing panelists. I was so happy to hear all the Chicago love. I'm first generation born here in Chicago and absolutely all of Chicago, and just so privileged to have been able to share space with you today to celebrate Mujeres and to mark this special occasion, which is Voces Unidas. The announcement I have is something many of you might already know, but Mujeres is really ready to tell our story. As these panelists have so importantly emphasized, Latina stories matter. Immigrant stories matter. The stories of our community's resiliency matter. As part of our 50th anniversary celebration, in the coming weeks, we will announce the director and production company who will create an important retrospective film about Mujeres Latinas in Acción. We had several impressive, talented, creative teams who have applied to take on this immense project. We feel a great responsibility of choosing the right team. I am so proud to be able to capture the anecdotes and voices of the heroines who, as a lifelong Chicago Latina, continue to inspire me. If you'd like to learn more about the film, please contact Mujeres 50th at mujereslot.org. The address is also in the chat. Thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us, and I hope to see many of you tomorrow night. Take care. Cuídense.